I'll be presenting the double victimization of criminalized women in neoliberal contexts, specifically the case of Paraguay. Today, we will be analyzing the question, are women rendered vulnerable by neoliberal policies more likely to be victimized by state agents when under their control? This question will specifically relate to Paraguay. Are women more vulnerable to incarceration? Are the weak easily targeted? Are women abused when incarcerated? Findings throughout the article confirm what we have already suspected, and the sad truth is just that. Sad. There's a clear disparity seen here, as women are disproportionately incarcerated and abused when incarcerated. Next, we'll move on to the existing literature. What does the existing literature say? Paraguay, a country with a population of 6.8 million people, in itself is seen struggling. The poverty rate was at 24.2% in 2018, with rates even higher in rural populations. People in Paraguay also have an unemployment rate of 6.9%, in comparison to Canada, which is at 5.83%, and America, which is much lower at 3.6%. Although, those who do have jobs in Paraguay may not be as lucky as those in our countries, for they may not have health benefits, safety protections, or even maternity leaves. Women also have an even bigger gender gap in contrast with those in Northern America, which we already know is a big problem. Education is also a big problem people in Paraguay face. Paraguay is at the bottom of Latin America's educational system, and it has the second lowest secondary education enrollment rate in the region. Only 64% of teenagers ages 15 to 17 are registered in school. Sadly, women and girls have it the worst. Girls leave school early, and many women are left illiterate. Girls are sent off to be unpaid servants to help them attend public school for a few years that they can. Along with all these problems, people in Paraguay also suffer medically. Women are more likely to die from giving birth than women in other Latin countries. They're also more likely to lose their spouse than their counterpart countries. In all of these cases, it is clear that women have to suffer the most. In their transition from dictatorship to the neoliberal ideologies, their prisoner rate went from 60 people to 100,000. This increase in incarceration came along with women suffering in a new category, incarceration. Women were also almost not classified as people. They did not have as many rights as those of their male counterparts. Women were excluded from property ownership, wage work, and education. This came along with sexual fetishization of women's bodies. This led to women being vulnerable to exploitation and commodification. In regards to crime, something's clear. Vulnerable people are rendered victims, and then their given victim status is criminalized. This means that women, who are already made vulnerable, are then penalized by the state basically for being vulnerable, yet the state are the ones who gave them that title. This article specifically focuses on women who are criminalized in neoliberal regimes. There has not been much that has targeted the ways of incarceration in Paraguay, specifically with women. Their prison population total has gone up by 400% since the year 2000. Not only that, but the amount of female prisoners has quadrupled. Rules have become much harsher, and crimes that used to be non-criminal have become criminal, while sentences have also been extended. Modifications were also made to remove guarantees of protection for people without the need for a trial and sentence. Crimes in Paraguay actually vary by gender. The percentages of people who are on trial or convicted for drug offenses is 60% women and only 20% man. Women with relation to drug crimes are almost definitely incarcerated. The conditions that these women are held in are often terrible. Women prisons in Paraguay are not that, but male prisons with a section dedicated for women. They are overcrowded, with no privacy and no clothing provision. They have no guarantee for food or access to water. Prisons also sexually harass and abuse women. Next, we'll be moving on to our research questions. Today, we have 2 questions at hand. Are women incarcerated in Paraguay disproportionately already victimized by neoliberal state violence? Here The examples would be undereducation and illiteracy, discrimination based on maternal status, so moms, poverty, and housing insecurity, and then criminalized by the state that rendered them vulnerable. The second question is, do victimized women incarcerated in neoliberal Paraguay suffer from more state violence in Paraguay prisons? Next, we'll be moving on to data and methods. So the methods used today, there was a large survey that represented 96.5% of the full population of incarcerated women in Paraguay, along with extensive interviews of 11 inmates who exemplified the population of interest for the study. There are 9 institutes across Paraguay, and in them, 813 female prisoners. 28 of the female prisoners decided to withdraw from participation. Yet, there were still 785 women who were incarcerated who were also willing to take the survey. This allowed for large pool surveys, which therefore allowed for analysis. The findings. Of the women surveyed, 82%, or 652 women, were numerate, and 84%, which is 659 of these women, were literate. 27%, or 212 of the women incarcerated, did not finish primary school. Of the women interviewed, many of them went into detail of their stories of being single moms or taking care of homes and children. Because of this, they had to not prioritize school, and they had to prioritize their family, whether it be their nephew that they're taking care of, their moms. Many of them were young mothers. So they had to put that first because for them, life experiences got in the way of their education. As for partners, just over half of the women incarcerated had a partner at the time of incarceration. Yet, 87% of the women had children. 5% of the women had over 8, and 2 women had 15 children. All of the women, but one, with multiple children, had children with different partners, suggesting that the fact that they were a single mother at some point in their life. Most of the children did not know, some not even recognizing, their biological father. Women incarcerated were much more likely to be poor than other Paraguayans. 14% reported to be unemployed. The children of these incarcerated women had to suffer secondhand because of the poverty, because they no longer have their mom because she is in jail. 85% of these women did labor in a home that was not theirs at some time in their childhood. So like I stated before, many of the women left their home to go to other people's home to clean or to maybe take care of them, and this is what they had to put before school or maybe as an outlet to go to school. But 85% of the women in this prison, or in these prisons, had to do that to find a way in life. 3 of the women interviewed actually did live on the streets and spoke about the hard times that they had. Next, we talk about the state of living while incarcerated. 270 women have admitted being hit, insulted, or hurt by police during this arrest, and almost 30% of women were robbed by someone in the government status after their incarceration. Many of the women incarcerated stated that they were missing jewelry or the money. A lot of these women that were involved with drug arrests or something to do with drugs, they made about $200,000 a day or $800,000 a week. So they did have a lot of money going into it, and a lot of them lost all of it or most of it, or even more, like with jewelry and stuff like that, when they got incarcerated because of the harsh times that they lived in, and that people would just go and steal like the people in the government. Sadly, rape and sexual assault was common in jail, some officials showing no mercy. One woman interviewed actually she shared her story of being pushed onto a bed and kicked and shoved while she was pregnant. And the whole time she was screaming out that she was pregnant, but some guards just didn't care. And that is just a sad truth that happened in many jails, especially in underdeveloped countries where no one seems to be listening. This is a sad problem that we have to pay attention to, but not a lot of people turn their heads and not a lot of people know. Next, we'll be speaking about the conclusion. Although many women rely on their market positions to ensure survival, neoliberal policies have not worked to be better with their collective position in labor markets, nor have they been increasing wages in low-skilled positions to allow these women to get a better life. Because of this, women are forced into illegal jobs in attempts to earn some money, particularly in the drug trade, which gets them in trouble and incarcerated, and sex work. The neoliberal state has vastly increased the punishments associated with black market labor. This means that poor women are at a much greater risk to be incarcerated, but they are forced to be in that position. In regards to the core research question, women being interviewed were asked about plans after incarceration. Few of them had concrete plans, and most of them were just trying to accept how life would be after incarceration. The data demonstrated that the vulnerable suffer in neoliberal regimes. Women incarcerated are more likely to be mothers, poor, undereducated, and housing insecure. These women endure far more emotional and physical pain than they should. There's powerful findings in this research that should be taken into account when thinking of the bigger picture. In Paraguay, the conflicts within structural inequality remain unsolved and the rate of incarceration continues to grow. While these plans may conform to existing theorizations regarding the relationship between neoliberalism and carcerality, the creation of more public housing for the poor in its shape of jails and prisons is the wrong solution for the amelioration of life in Paraguay. There's so many things that we can do. There's so many things that has to be done. Because this article is shedding more light to people in our generation, and something has to be done to help these women in many undeveloping countries that people may not know about, people may not hear about. There's nothing said about this except for people who do this research, so it's great. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my assignment. I'm so excited, and thank you. Thank you very much.